And like everywhere in her mind, everywhere is racist. Like, oh, you know they racist in Cuba. You know they racist in Europe. You know they racist. I'm like, Mom, my next door neighbor is racist, and I'm gonna go out.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
it's just like she was always so worried about everything. And God bless her soul, she's no longer here with us. But she didn't do much in terms of like adventure. She always wanted to. Right. She always talked about wanting to go to Alaska on a cruise. She always talked about wanting to, travel here and there, but she never even got on a plane my whole life because she was scared. Right. Power in our heads, in our minds to create or to kill whatever our dream is. Right. And I know it sounds very like woo woo, but quite honestly, most things that we fear happening never even happen. And my mother was the best example of this. My mom was a worst case scenario always person, right? She watched entirely too much First 48. She was just like, all she watched was like crime shows. So that's all she like would think about, right? So I remember the first time I went out the country, I went to Cuba, and she's like, oh my gosh, Gwen, like everywhere in her mind, everywhere is racist. Like, oh, you know they racist in Cuba. You know they racist in Europe. You know they racist. I'm like, Mom, my next door neighbor is racist, and I'm gonna go out.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
It's just like she was always so worried about everything. And God bless her soul, she's no longer here with us. But she didn't do much in terms of like adventure. She always wanted to. Right. She always talked about wanting to go to Alaska on a cruise. She always talked about wanting to, travel here and there, but she never even got on a plane my whole life because she was scared. Right. And it's like she created this whole scenario in her mind of things that would happen. I remember I went to Colombia, Bogota, and I took my son. I had a speaking engagement in Colombia. I took my son because I thought it would be a great opportunity for him to go. And she's like, oh my gosh, he's a cute little boy. And Gwen, those people down there, they racist. And they go cut
not
his
in
head
Bogota.
off. Right. They gonna cut his head off and make you watch. And I'm like, what? Like, it was like the worst thing that could possibly ever happen was her reality. Yeah. And she did not talk to me for 2 weeks because she was upset that she's like, you're a mother. You should have more responsibility than she's like, they sell drugs in Colombia. I'm like, you watch too much.
We've been indoctrinated. That's what they show on the news too. We've been indoctrinated to believe that every place else, if we travel, we'll die.
Right. And so it's like, even let's take that thought. Because when I told her I was opening a business and I had was leaving Ford because I had gotten laid off, she's like, oh my gosh, Gwen, like, what are you gonna do? Like, you have to have a job. I was like, well, I'm gonna start a business. Why don't you just go get a job? And it was like, well, I think this is like an opportunity for me to I think this is a blessing in disguise. Like, I got laid off. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Now's the time. She's like, you're a new mother, and how are you gonna pay your bills? And I was like, I don't know, it's gonna happen, because my mind told me it couldn't fail. Her mind said that it possibly would, right? But it didn't matter what her mind was telling her because I was the one in control. So I continued to move like I was going to move, not letting a naysayer. And she had my best interest at heart.
And most of us can relate. Our mothers did the best they could with what they knew, right?
Absolutely.
So we can relate to that.
But not letting a naysayer sway me. And then I grew to what I did, right? And of course, she was super proud of me and, all those things. But we create chaos in our minds. So again, do yourself a favor. Stop creating chaos. Stop inciting panic for something that hasn't even happened. Here's what you can do that will really, really help you. Think to yourself, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, truly the worst thing. So it's like the worst that can happen truly is that it just doesn't work out. What's the best that could happen? So really think about the worst, because we assume all this bad stuff can happen. And most of that stuff doesn't even logically make sense,
Right.
If it doesn't, you just move on with your life. And so that's the best advice I can give. It's like, stop creating chaos that doesn't exist.
Listen, and what I heard from that is you miss 100% of the shots that you do not take. It's just, sometimes we overcomplicate things, but think about if you're into sports, Kobe Bryant, Mamba mentality. I look at that book every day just so I can, face the world and do what I need to do. But if he was scared to shoot the ball, he would never have become, arguably one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And I'll use Martha Stewart, who started her company at the age of 50 years old and grew it to a multi-million dollar business. But I'm sure the naysayers were like, you too old, nobody's gonna, and just think of people, Oprah Winfrey, a Black woman who looked like a Black woman.
Right.
And took over the airwaves for decades with the #1 talk show and the naysayers that she talks about frequently. And so, it's all about the execution. It really is. It's all about taking that shot, seeing where the ball lands. And if you miss, you take another shot. It's really not complicated, but because of our history and so many other things, we unfortunately get stuck. So I thank you for, and then the other thing you said, stop creating chaos. And, a lot of times we get in our head too much, and I'm an overthinker. I'm super. And what this year, my 2 words are intention and accountability. So it's like, I only focus on things that drive me to do. Even if all the, boxes aren't, all the lines to the boxes aren't touching, it's all about accountability and intention. And as long as my intention is right and I take the action, we'll see where it lands, right? So, and then the right what if, right? So making sure that the what if, turns out, like, what if, like, just think about what is the worst thing that can happen. And if anything that is not going to cause harm to you, then fine. And I'm glad you talked about travel, because, we're all about promoting travel here. I do passport giveaways. If you're not following me on TikTok, we're about to make an announcement for February. Last year I gave away for, I want to do one every month in 2024. So please follow us there for the announcement and join my mailing list. And then I do want to, before we close out with you and do the announcement, join us Friday at 7 p.m. where I will have the author of I Love My People, Kim Singleton, as our Welcome to Black History Month guest. And she's going to, do a reading. She's going to talk. She's also a filmmaker. She does documentaries.
I do think that, like, Black Travel and Culture is such a great name, but then also such a great mission also. Because like you said, not enough of us are actually traveling and actually seeing the world, because your perspective just expands so much and possibilities expand so much in your mind when you see the world. And so I think that you're doing the Lord's work. So I think you're doing really, really great. But yeah, everybody just, download my book. It's going to bless you. Like I said, it'll help you find money in your business, help you save money in your business. It's 56 pages, chock full of gems. Make sure you download it at gwenjameer.com/biz guide. That same link is also on my channel, but I think Kim said she has it in her show notes as well. So you can get it from there easily. And just make sure you hit the subscribe button on the Get Money Show. I'll be posting my first video probably in about a week or 2. And we'll get this party started. And I'll be dropping videos every single week from that point on.